Welcome to Beyond the Pod, presented by SodaStick.com.
Brunette, he moves, Brunette back in, he scores! Minnesota has upset the Colorado Avalanche! Andrew Brunette, the game-winning goal!
Here are your hosts, the second greatest scorer in Gopher hockey history, Pat Micheletti, and the second greatest hockey analyst on this podcast, Brandon Mileski.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Pod. Brandon Mileski along with Pat Micheletti on a weekly basis, thanks to SodaStick.com. And it's a new day for St. Thomas, the University of St. Thomas. They are officially Division I as of today, and we're now joined by the head coach of the men's hockey team, Rico Blasi. Rico, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Talk to us about the decision. What was it intrigued you about the St. Thomas job when it opened up, going from Division III to Division I? What intrigued you about it?
Well, first and foremost, I think just the university and what it stands for, and the vision, and the mission of common good and service, and the Catholic tradition, and I think those things first jumped out at me. And then when you meet the people that are in the leadership roles, Dr. Sullivan, Dr. Eston, our director of athletics, and just his team and that he surrounded himself with. Those are the two big reasons why this was a job that I think a lot of people were looking at. So fortunate enough for me, I went through the interview process and was chosen, and super excited to be here. And it's been a great 2 months, a lot of work, but and a lot of work to be done still. It's been a lot of fun.
You've been coaching an awfully long time, going back to Denver. I think I mentioned when you were an assistant at Denver, and then on to Miami, and had a great career there. The time off, did that help you reflect, or did just give you a time to breathe and knowing that you probably still wanted to coach?
It really did, Pat. I think you and I have talked about it before. It's when you're in the everyday routine of coaching for 25, 26 years, right. You forget that I've helped raise two daughters, all the players that we've coached, and you forget about some of the things along the way and just grind it out. And so, it was good to step back. Now, I can tell you it wasn't easy. It was tough. We had a few months where it was, I'm not sure. Looking back, I really don't remember what I did. I knew I was in a bad place. In my heart and my stomach, I felt like I could still coach. I felt like I was still doing a pretty good job in helping these young men develop and move on to whatever they were choosing to go on into. So, but then it gave me an opportunity to be with my daughters, to connect with them, connect with my family, my wife, and just kind of live. And then, we put a plan together to go and see some different colleges, to work with some different pro teams, just to get an idea of what was out there, what was I missing, what were the things that we were doing well that we can continue to do, was there new terminology? So we did that for the year, and then COVID hit. So let's add a little more salt to the wound.
Right.
But everybody was going through that. So at that point, I felt, let's take things and be grateful for what we have. Let's take every day the way, it should be, and appreciate everything. And then I got this opportunity to go to Providence, AD in charge of both men's and women's hockey, and work for Bob Driscoll, who's a great guy, hockey player, been an AD for a long time, had so much success, and kind of gave me, a little bit of the reins on the AD side, and taught me a lot about what it meant to be an administrator and what it looks like from the other side. And then the other thing that it allowed me to do is to watch two really outstanding coaches, Nate Lehman on the men's side, who's a unbelievable coach, smart, makes great adjustments, motivates his players. So I got to see him in action and see how the players reacted to what he was saying. And I don't think I would have seen that if you don't see that when you're the head coach and you're the guy talking all the time. And so that gave me an opportunity to see things in action from a different lens. So put all those experiences together.
Right.
It's going to be part of the book. But at the same time, it was a necessary step, I think, to making us better coaches. And I think we're going to be that much better at the University of St. Thomas than we were maybe a couple of years ago.
How much has coaching changed from when you first started? Because you were at Miami of Ohio for 20 years, and it seems like your year of reflection, you're almost kind of insinuating that, you know, maybe there's some evolving and adjusting you have to do. Because I would have to imagine, one, just this generation of players is much different than it was 20 years ago. And with all the video and analytics now, I'm sure there has to be a lot that you've had to adjust to and had to have evolved since when you first started coaching.
Sure. I mean, if you're coaching, you're evolving, you're up to speed on the new technology, on the new terminology. That was always part of my persona, was to go out and make sure that you were learning and surrounding yourself with people that were at a higher level or whatever, and make yourself better. So, I think things have changed from 20 years ago. You mentioned the players are bigger, stronger, faster. The technology is better. Everybody knows what you do. You have to be super prepared. The recruiting has changed. Probably, I would say recruiting is probably the most that the evolution of that has probably been the biggest change. And so you have to keep up with that. And and then the student athletes changed, right? Everybody knows everything now. Everything's at the fingertips. You got to use phones to communicate. I learned that from my daughters. I communicate with my daughters on Snapchat more than anything. I didn't even know what Snapchat was 2 years ago. So, but that's how I communicate with them. So it's constantly evolving. And I'm sure if you ask me this question 5 years from now, we'll have the same discussion on how to change and make it better. And I think now this generation you need to explain what you do. You need to understand them at a deeper level. Maybe 20 years ago, you could motivate and say, hey, people didn't want you. Let's try to prove everybody wrong. Now they want to know why we're doing a certain forecheck, or why are we practicing this way today. So the technology and the analytics come into play with that. Now, what I've learned is there's a balance on everything, right? Just like life, there's always a balance. And so finding that balance for your team and your program is the most important.
You mentioned that you have a ton of work to do, and obviously it's a new program going Division I. Where are you? Are you comfortable with where you're at in terms of accomplishing, getting players? I know you just hired a couple assistants. Getting familiar just with Minnesota. All of those things. Where are you at?
I feel really good, Pat, where we're at. When we first were told that we were going to be the head coach at St. Thomas, we put a list together, right? So your first 100 days in office, I guess, and the first 2 weeks was all about recruiting and making sure that we had a team that can compete this coming year. And I think we've done that. I feel good about the players that we have. I feel good about some of the transfer kids that we've taken, all in line with the character and the culture that we want to build here at St. Thomas. And I feel good about the first year players that we have coming in as well. And then Pat, and Brandon, I can tell you that one of the, for 2 weeks, I did an evaluation practice with the Division III team, because we had so many days in Division III that weren't used because of COVID. So we could actually go out and practice with them. And I got a chance to see them live. And so there was a little bit of angst because you didn't know who would make the team or not. So when we chose the 12 from the Division III team that were going to transition to Division I, that moment for me, seeing their faces and the way they lit up when we met as a group of 12 was pretty special. And that's the type of culture that we're going to build at St. Thomas. Those are the type of guys that we want here, that are grateful, that appreciate, that are going to work hard, they're going to be good student athletes, that are going to be good citizens in our community. And those of us do that along with the guys that we recruited. So that's been great. I feel good about that. We hired our 2 assistant coaches, Stu Bickle, who everybody knows, a former Gopher, played for the Wild, brings a ton of energy, connection. Stu's ready to go. He's hitting the ground running. And then Leon Hayward, who's very familiar with the Minnesota area and recruiting for Colorado College, just knows the NCAA compliance and admissions processes and stuff like that. So that was kind of the first 2 things that we wanted to do, is make sure that we recruited a team, and then we got 2 assistants that could hit the ground running and believe in the culture that we're trying to create, believe in the vision of the university and the mission. And so I think we've done that. Now we got to hire an ops person. So that's the next thing in line. We got to make sure that now we're putting our list together for recruiting for our future. And we're doing that, putting all the pieces together for when the team comes back here in late August, and get the ball rolling.
Rico, I want to go back quickly, Brandon, to the 12 guys that you selected. But were you surprised at all? No, I'm not, because I know how good Division III hockey is. What was your initial, thought when you were out on the ice with that team?
Well, I had a chance to watch some video behind ice, so I saw them play their games this past year, and then getting on the ice, I was immediately impressed with their work ethic, their attention to detail, the way they embraced what we were doing. And I say this now, but I kind of designed it on purpose. We were practicing at 6 a.m. just to see if we were committed or not.
What a great guy!
Yeah, I kind of questioned that the first day I got up at 4:45. I was like, what am I doing right now? But anyway, and then the speed. I think our speed really impressed me. I wasn't expecting that. You can't tell that on video, right? So, Coach Besser did a great job with this program for a lot of years, and he deserves a lot of credit, and his staff. There's a lot of success here at St. Thomas at the Division III level. So I was happily surprised, but not surprised, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
I know there's a lot of Division I guys that leave Division I and want to come to St. Thomas because of the academics and the entire package that it has to offer. So it was good. It was a good 2 weeks.
Rico, how crazy is the transfer portal, and how beneficial has it been for you to be starting a new program and have it coincide with kind of the timing of, not saying you're going to be, going to the Frozen Four this year, but in terms of winning quicker here than maybe most startup programs would?
Yeah, I think, Brandon, the transfer portal is crazy. It's something that I think you really have to do your homework, and you've got to kind of take a deep dive on the guys that are in there and why they're in there and why they want to transfer. So it was a lot of phone calls to different people that do individual. It was asking them why they were, kind of getting it from the horse's mouth, and then doing the background checks from there. So thankfully, after 26 years of coaching at the college level, you have some networks out there, and it was good for me to kind of connect with some of my friends that are in the business that might have coached them, that might have played against them, and get their opinions a little bit. And then I watched a lot of video, but I'm thinking that it might settle down here in years to come, because there's players on that portal now that don't have a home. And, it's one of those things that's changed quite a bit, obviously. And so we'll see how it goes in the future. But it has benefited us. I think it's going to make us a little bit more competitive right off the bat. So that's a good thing for us.
Every coach wants to win. This is the first year of Division I. What expectations do you have, or have you set any, or is it just going to evolve?
Yeah, so I think it's important that we set our culture and our work ethic, attention to detail, the things like that are the expectations that I have for our team right off the bat. Work hard. Everybody's gonna be together. This is gonna be a team first mantra. We're going to have faith. We're going to trust each other. We're going to be a family. And those things I expect to improve on each and every day. And that'll be the goal. We're going to practice hard. And hopefully when the games come, we're going to be prepared and we're going to be competitive. We're not take anybody. Everybody shouldn't take us lightly because we're going to work hard. We probably won't have the talent that some of the teams that we're going to play, but we're going to show up and we're going to play the right way. And so that's kind of my expectation for the year. And this is to be a long-term successful program. We have to make the necessary, and I think those are the first things that we need to establish.
Rico, a lot of times with smaller programs, you might dip into older players that have played a few years of juniors. You obviously, from a geographical standpoint, you're in, probably the best hockey market in the United States to draw players from. What is kind of your recruiting strategy with a brand new program? Brandon. You lost me? Can you hear me now? We're going to set him down for a second. While we have him away, let's talk about SodaStick.com, our sponsor here on Beyond the Pod. And of course, 4th of July is coming up. Our friends at SodaStick just restocked all of their 1980 USA hockey themed merch in collaboration with the Herb Brooks Foundation. A portion of sales will be donated to the Herb Brooks Foundation. All of their apparel is screen printed here in Minnesota on super soft, super comfy shirts. You will love it. We're going to hook you up with 15% off your next order. Use the code KFN for 15% off. That is SodaStick.com. Original Minnesota sports inspired goods. Use the code KFN for 15% off your next order. And debuting it right now, the Minnesota North State hat. It says on the website that they are out. They actually have them right back in stock right now. So make sure you go to SodaStick.com and get this hat back for use that code KFN for 15% off. Let's try to get to Rico quick here and see if he's back. Rico, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Rico?
I can't hear you.
All right. Well, we'll just have to say goodbye to Rico and Pat. Let's move on with the rest of the show.
Yes.
Not surprised.
We'll have him on again.
Yeah, we'll have Rico on again. Obviously, we were having some connection issues with him. But Kirill Kaprizov wins the Calder, 99 out of 100 votes. Not surprising in any way, shape, or form.
No, not at all. I mean, what a year. I was thinking back, Brandon, probably about a year ago. And you and I were talking about expectations and, what can the people expect. And we were very measured in our comments just based on the fact that he's going to be new to the National Hockey League. It's the best league in the world. He has succeeded everywhere that he played and at every level. And boy, he did not disappoint. And just, he showed what type of competitor he is, along, obviously, with the skill. It was a fun year and fun to watch him be a part of this.
Now, we saw him year one. I think he met or exceeded all expectations in year one. How do you view him moving forward here? Because, if you look at the list of Calder trophy winners in the past, there's a lot of superstars on that list. That being said, he came in as an older player. He was in Russia for 5 years. So, he's not winning this award as a 19-year-old with still, I guess, I'm just trying to say, how do you project him moving forward? Because he's, I think, a superstar now. But I would also say, Pat, if you can get other talent around him, he was playing with Victor Rask as a center and, probably a second-line winger and Matt Zuccarello. I mean, you had another high-level player with them. I still think there's still plenty of room for him to grow.
I'll try to explain it this way. Sometimes you get players who get that star player and they get to play on a line with him. Okay. And all of a sudden you go from, like 10 goals to 40, right? Because you're playing with a great player. Now, when you look at Kaprizov, he didn't have a star player, really, centerman, whatever, however you want to deem it. But he is one of those guys that wants more. And I think he's got the skill set to do it. And you're right. You get a more talented guy with him. I just think he really, really wants it. And I just think he's gonna, explode as the years go on.
I think you touch on a key point, Pat, because I think there's nothing better from a coaching standpoint to have a superstar who's not only skilled and talented and can score big goals, but has that competitive drive,
Right.
Wants to battle, he wants to win more than anything else.
Oh my gosh.
And that is so infectious on the rest of the team. And I think we saw that this year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it made everybody else on the team say, God, I have to work that hard. It is really fun, to win hockey games. And this guy is infusing all of this energy into the team. And, man, I don't know what else to say. He's just, he's wonderful to watch.
Now let's talk about the center position. This won't be the last time we'll talk about the center position this year. But you and I have talked plenty about Jack Eichel, and I would definitely be fine with the Wild kicking the tires on Eichel, and as long as you're not giving up too much, which right. I think you probably will have to give up too much.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it might not work. But I was reading a Russo column in The Athletic, kind of listing potential centers you could go after, and as I was reading, the light just kind of clicked on for me as to how I would approach this situation moving forward, assuming you can't get Eichel. I still wouldn't force the number one center thing here, Pat. I know that's frustrating for Wild fans to hear, but I'm not one of those that just all of a sudden wants to go for a Reinhardt or other players that you have to commit to on a long-term basis. Because my fear is, especially with you got to pay Kaprizov, you got to pay Fiala, you got to pay Eriksson Ek, that you start spending money on a center that isn't your prototypical number one center, you're also going to block Marco Rossi from having a chance eventually. Yeah. So as I was reading the list of names of Russo, Stastny's name kind of popped up. And I know Stastny's past his prime in the last 2 years, hasn't been as productive as he has been in the past. But I think that type of player might be the best approach, where you get a guy like Stastny on a 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal, and he's just a placeholder until Marco Rossi is ready. Because let's face it, Rossi is still young. We haven't seen him in the National Hockey League. He missed an entire season. Hasn't been able to train as well as you would like him to. So, to think that Marco Rossi is going to be ready next season and be a number one center, is it possible? Sure, I guess it's possible. But I guess my point is, Pat, I want someone who's maybe an upgrade from Victor Rask, but we can still have him on a short-term basis, so that when Marco Rossi is ready to take over, we have an opening for him.
I might jump all over here, Brandon.
That's fine.
With my comments. On Stastny, what you would get out of him is a very intelligent player and a guy who is really, really good on the power play. You got to look at him. Secondly, if you look at the Montreal Canadiens, right, they don't have at least not yet, a star centerman. They don't have many star players.
Yeah.
Nick Suzuki is going to be really good. Gallagher is your prototypical second line, hardworking, really good player. Okay. I guess my point being is that they got to the cup with what they have. Now you can call it whatever. They played in the Canadian division, lucky year, blah, blah, blah. But it goes back to your point a week ago on the goaltending, right? And Carey Price been phenomenal. Just because you get, let's say they got an Eichel. Okay. Let's throw it out there.
Yeah.
That does not guarantee you're going to the Stanley Cup because you acquired a number one center. There are different ways to get to the cup, to get to a cup final. And it's yeah, I mean, you just don't know. And for me, I don't want to mortgage the future. I like a Boldy developing. I like a Marco Rossi developing. We all want a Stanley Cup here tomorrow. We want it yesterday. But sometimes you have to have that patience to, build the right team and get the right guys. And so I think Bill Guerin, from, just even talking to him, he's not going to do anything that is going to mortgage the future of this team. I think they have a plan. I think they're going to stick to the plan, and we might not see a lot of flash happen this summer.
You mentioned the goaltending. Marc-Andre Fleury won the Vezina, which is it's kind of crazy, Pat. Last offseason at this time, actually past this time, since it was a fall offseason last year, he was being shopped. And even the Minnesota Wild at one point were in rumors to acquire him. And I think the salary eventually probably scared Bill Guerin off. But they were trying to move him and really probably couldn't move him last year. No one would take on that salary.
Right.
Then all of a sudden he wins the Vezina. And even after he wins the Vezina, I'm still seeing rumors of him, of Vegas potentially shopping this guy.
Well, yeah, he's. I think he'll be gone. I think Robin Leonard is like 4 or 5 years younger, and he's got a monster deal.
Well, that's a lot of money tied up in 2 goalies.
Yeah, I mean, over $12 million. And how many times did we see last year or during the regular season they had to play shorthanded because they were over the cap?
Yeah.
They couldn't suit up a guy, and they can't go through that again. So I think he probably will be dealt. It'll be interesting to see who is going to want to pick up that contract. And, for a 37-year-old goaltender, I tell you what, he looked young in the net this year. I mean, he was phenomenal. And guess what? Somebody will.
A couple of different coaching changes, Pat. Gerard Gallant, the new head coach in New York for the Rangers. Dave Haxtell, the first ever coach for the Seattle Kraken. And Don Granato retained in Buffalo. Any of those head coaching hires pique your interest at all?
Well, I was happy for Hack. He's talk about a guy being very cerebral or measured or or serious, if for lack of a better term. I'm glad he's getting another opportunity. I think he learned from Philadelphia, just about all the nuances about the National Hockey League. It's hard to tell, how he's going to do. It all depends what type of team he has. Don Granato, I think, deserved a crack at it. They were a mess, and he somewhat turned them around. He had them believing a little bit more. Now we'll see what happens during a 82 game season, and if they can, change their culture throughout a whole season. So I was happy for that. Gallant. Not surprising that he got another opportunity. Just won gold for Canada in the World Championships. Did wonderful in Vegas that first and second year. And he's got a lot of young talent there. And so, I guess not overly shocked.
How do you think the expansion process is going to go through with Seattle? Because I've heard lots of people, Pat, do the old, well, after what Vegas did a couple years ago, teams aren't going to fall for that. Yet, even when reading stuff on the Wild, people will still suggest, well, maybe they offer up a pick to make sure that Talbot and so we can act like these teams will make the same mistake, and Vegas pulled it off as well as you potentially could.
Right.
It could. So to expect Seattle to jump to that level might be a little far fetched, but they're the same expansion rules, and teams are still going to have players they want to protect. I'm not buying that. Seattle's not going to be able to pull off the same thing Vegas did.
No, in fact, I think, and they may not get to that level, but to your point, to what you just said, why not? I mean, nothing has really changed, and teams are still going to be in that situation. Who do I want to lose? Do I need to really protect this guy? Okay, well, we'll give you this, that, and the other thing. So no, I think they're going to do very well. I think Ron Francis well, I think is a great hire. Number one, he's a very intelligent guy, and he won't settle on for something that he's not comfortable with. And so I think they'll be just fine.
Looking back at the expansion draft, the Wild had of the Columbus Blue Jackets. One, you had two teams at that time, and under different rules, not as talented a player pool to choose from. Man, did we get screwed compared to Vegas?
Oh my gosh!
I know they're spending a lot more money with expansion fees, but
there was
it's not even fair.
Pickens, right?
Yeah,
right. And so it is quite different now. Really good players are going to be exposed. And, it'll be interesting to see. I'm really curious to see what Minnesota ends up doing. I mean, they have options, available that, might surprise some people.
Your guy, Ryan Nugent Hopkins, looked like he's not going to be available anymore. He signs an 8-year, $41 million deal with the Edmonton Oilers. I've never been the biggest Nugent Hopkins guy. That being said, Pat, $5 million a year for him for the next 8 years. That's very manageable for your cap.
Yep. I thought it was a fair deal for both sides. And you know what? I think he understood that he is not the guy, right? Connor McDavid is the guy.
Well, anyone playing with Connor McDavid, yeah,
the guy. But he was a number one pick, and I think he's really comfortable where he's at. And I'm happy for him that they got the deal done. But yeah, I just think it was a fair price.
One college thing, then we did have Rico Blasi in. I'm sure we'll talk more college as we move on through the offseason. But what are you expecting from St. Thomas in this transition to Division I?
Well, you know what? I think they're going to be hungry. I think they're going to be competitive. I think they're playing in the right league to enter Division I. I think it'd be certainly much tougher going into the Big Ten or Hockey East or the NCAA.
Yeah.
And so I think, listen, I think the place is going to be a gold mine. Once they get a new building built, and I think how Rico's approach to it is one of building. Here's how we're going to do it at St. Thomas, and recruit to that type of player, and the culture and the everything that he mentioned. So I think they're I think they'll be just fine. I don't know if they'll be in the upper echelon of the league, but they'll compete.
Pat, enjoy your 4th of July. We'll talk to you next week right here on Beyond the Pod.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brandon.
All right, he's Pat Micheletti. I'm Brandon Mileski. This has been another episode of Beyond the Pod. It's brought to you by sodastick.com. Use the code KFAN for 15% off. You can get those USA shirts. They have plenty of them over at sodastick.com. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this episode.